Hello, everybody, and welcome to this latest webinar made possible by the admissions office here at Oberlin. I know we're probably going to take just a few seconds here to let people join, since we'd like to start when everyone sort of feels situated. I know not everyone is super comfortable using Zoom. It's a lot to get used to on top of everything else that's going on right now. But we're really, really grateful that you're here and so glad that you're able to participate in this discussion today. You probably know this from the description, but we're here to talk to you about the Allen Memorial Art Museum, which is Oberlin's very own art museum, and all the different ways that students get involved. So we're talking about academic things, pre-professional things, professional things, community aspect of the museum, and we're here to answer questions that you have. We're going to try to sort of anticipate any questions that you have in our sort of main section, where we'll all be talking together and introducing ourselves. But then, of course, as always, we'll open up the floor so that you can pose your own questions, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. But for now, I think we should just go ahead and get started. And as we go along, if anyone missed anything, feel free to add a question in the Q&A bar. It should be at the bottom of your screen where it says Q&A with a little text squares. So if you have any questions for us, feel free to add those, and we'll do our best to get to them. So, we hope everyone is safe and healthy. We really appreciate your time tuning in. My name is Walker Shadle, as you can see on the little thing below my name. I actually graduated from Oberlin last spring, so almost a year ago, which is insane for me to realize now. I was an art history major. I'm from Chicago, so Oberlin was a change of setting, but I've really, really loved it. And one of the main reasons I chose it in the first place was that I knew about the Allen Memorial Art Museum and all that it does for students, and also its really impressive collection. So this session is called Living and Learning with Art at Oberlin. And so that title is supposed to encapsulate all the different potential directions that this conversation can go in. But we'd like to talk about all the different ways that Oberlin College and conservatory students get involved in art through the Allen, and how art plays a role in everyone's life as an Oberlinian. And that means students, but also community members, faculty, staff. So we have some topics we'd like to cover ourselves, and then, as I said before, we'll open it up to questions. And that's pretty much it. My position at the Allen, I am a curatorial assistant in the education department. So we'll get into a little bit more about what the education department does, but I just wanted to give the other panelists a chance to introduce themselves. I'm just going to be moderating today. Of course, I'll answer any questions that come into me, but my role is really to facilitate this discussion. So why don't we start off with Jill?
Hi, everyone. I am Jill Greenwood. I'm the Eric and Jane Nord Family Curator of Education at the Allen. I use she, her pronouns, and I have been here at Oberlin at the Allen for just about 3 years now, so not a super long time, but enough to have a really good sense of what a fantastic place it is to work. And I am very excited to share some information about this wonderful institution with you today. So thank you for organizing all of this, and I'm happy to be here.
And then, thank you, Jill. If we could have Hannah, and go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah Kinney. I'm the Assistant Curator of Academic Programs at the Allen Memorial Art Museum. My background, as you'll see here, is one of our galleries in the Allen Museum, which is our collection of medieval and Renaissance paintings, which is one of my really favorite places in the museum because I'm a specialist in that period. So it's what brought me to the Allen and a place that I really love to teach. So in my role as Assistant Curator of Academic Programs, I work with faculty members and students from across the college and conservatory to really make art part of everything, every topic, every way of thinking that there could be. And I have a great team that I work with. One of them is Lucy, who will tell you more about what she does here, as well as a curatorial assistant, someone like Walker, a recent graduate. So I'm happy to be in this session today and to tell you more about the way that art plays a really central role in learning at Oberlin.
Thanks, Hannah. Lucy, if you want to go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lucy Haskell. I'm a senior art history and comparative literature major, and I've worked at the Allen since my second year at Oberlin. I currently work in the Department of Academic Programs as a student assistant for Hannah, and I've also worked for Jill in the past. So I've held a number of positions at the Allen, and I continue to work and volunteer there, and it's been a really integral part of my Oberlin experience, both academically and kind of pre-professionally, which I'll speak about more later.
Thanks, Lucy. Chloe.
Hi, my name is Chloe Lai. I'm a second year. I use she, her. And as the question you asked earlier about our favorite spot to sit, mine is in the art library. It's in the corner with a window that looks into the contemporary gallery of the Allen. It's just a really peaceful spot to sit, and the pillows are comfy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to introduce everyone or have everyone say their favorite place to just sit in Oberlin. Mine is probably, so Finney Chapel is this big, what used to be a church on campus on Tappan Square, that big green area. And we have concerts and convocation lectures there and a lot of really important events. And beside it, there's this really narrow stretch between a couple of buildings, and there's a bench and a very quietly bubbling fountain, and I like to sit there. There's a memorial, I think, to veterans who were Oberlin graduates. So I don't know if anyone else wants to. I think, Hannah, you mentioned that the gallery that is your background might serve that for you, but I don't know if Jill or Lucy, you'd like to mention yours.
Sure, I'll talk about I have two places on campus that are my favorites. One of them is, of course, the art museum, but we'll put that aside because that should be everyone's favorite spot. But just behind the art museum, there's this beautiful sort of medieval Renaissance courtyard that has these wonderful green plants, and it's just really calm and peaceful, and I really enjoy that spot. The second place that I really love is that the college owns a house designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, and since I organize programs for the house, I can get in there when nobody's there, and I can sit in the chairs and look out over this beautiful lawn and from the architecture, and it's just really peaceful and lovely. Lucy?
I'd say mine is probably one of the concert halls in the conservatory. There's one on the third floor of the addition to the conservatory, and it's very tall ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, and it looks out over Tappan Square. So that's kind of the central area of the town of Oberlin and really adjacent to campus. So you can look out over the tree tops there, and if you're there kind of for a concert around 5 p.m., everything kind of glows and you can see the sun go down, and it's a really magical place to just have a serene moment and take in a really beautiful, beautiful vista.
Yeah, I love that's like Stall, right? I can't remember what it's called. I think it's Stall. Love that room. Okay, so without further ado, let's just sort of jump in. Chloe, I was hoping to ask you a question first. So you're a second year, as you said, and you're an art history major, and you're also a museum docent. So we'll get into a little bit more about what that is, and maybe you can introduce it to us, but you're also part of what we call at Oberlin Sites, Spanish in the elementary schools, which is a program where Oberlin College students teach Spanish in the schools. And so I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit first of all, how you became a docent, what that was like going through the training process, and what it's been like to serve as a docent at the Allen, and then how your participation in Sites has sort of impacted that for you.
Yeah, I love being a docent. It's some of the favorite things I do while I'm at Oberlin. I came to Oberlin because of the Allen also, because I was super excited by the art rental program, but I didn't know that I was going to be an art history major. I just signed up for a class my first semester, and then that kind of sold me on the whole thing. I just loved like thinking and writing about art from that lens. So I was looking at like different projects for a winter term, and I saw the Practicum Museum Education taught by Jill Greenwood, and that sounded super interesting, like perfect for me. So I signed up for that, and we learned a lot about, we had a lot of discussions about museum accessibility and like the inner workings of a museum, and we got to meet almost everyone, I think everyone who works at the museum, from security officers to the director. And then all of that was to train to be a docent. So now I mostly give tours for second graders, but there's all sorts of events that as a docent you can sign up to help out at, like public community events or tours for like older people. But I really like working with kids. I've always really enjoyed like education and public engagement in that way. So I have a couple other jobs working with kids at Oberlin, like with Sites or America Reads. But since I loved art, I thought the museum is a perfect place to like merge those two interests. And yeah, being a docent is so fun for the second graders because their perspective on what they see and what they think is just so like fresh. But working at Sites helps me like develop a better relationship with them. And since Oberlin is such a small town, it's so fun to see the kids walking around and they'll recognize you and you'll see them all the time and say like hi on the streets. And it's just fun to build the long-term relationship with the kids throughout the year and watch them grow. I forgot if there's a third question, Walker, about...
No, that's really helpful. Thank you so much. I just want to remind everyone, you can ask questions at any time, even while we're talking. So if you have anything that someone brings up, that something question is sparked by what you hear, feel free to add that. Chloe, thank you so much. Yeah. So when you're talking about the Allen as this community resource, it reminded me that not everyone knows really where the Allen is or what it looks like. So the Allen is also right on Tappan Square. And a lot of times when you're coming into Oberlin, it's the first thing you see. And it's a really grand looking building with columns. And it really does serve this like multi-generational community function. And one of my favorite things is how many people will get in the museum who are either teachers from the area or parents, and they'll say, you know, my first time at a museum was when I went to the Allen as a student in second grade or fifth grade or whatever it was, 30 years ago when they were in school. And that's a really fun thing. The museum has been open for almost 103 years exactly. It's our birthday in a couple months. We opened in 1917. So we've been around for a while. For those of you who haven't already seen this, Chloe, actually both Chloe and Lucy have a video featured of them on the Oberlin College website where they talk a little bit about what their interest in art has looked like while they've been students at Oberlin. So you can check that out too if you'd like. Let's turn to Lucy. So you're a fourth year art history and comparative literature double major. And you've filled multiple roles at the Allen since you took the practicum and then you started working as a second year. Sometimes I think of you in my head as like a museum all-star because you really have done pretty much everything there is to do at the museum as a student. And I'm wondering if you could just tell us your story about your relationship with the Allen.
Yeah, so like Chloe, I started off as a docent, and the kind of entry point to that is the practicum, which I did my freshman year. And then in my sophomore year, I applied to job openings, knowing that I wanted to be more involved and I wanted to do it in a professional capacity. So I actually applied to be Jill's assistant and did not get that position. But then later in the year, another position opened, and since I had already applied, they were kind of aware of me, and I became the assistant to the curator of European and American art. So that's kind of a research-heavy position. It's less public-facing than the other two positions I've held, which are as one of Jill's student assistants the following summer, and then now as one of Hannah's student assistants in academic programs. So I've kind of moved from that curatorial assistantship into education, which I'll just echo what Chloe said about how wonderful it is to be integrated in the community in that way. I spent the summer after my sophomore year in Oberlin working for Jill, and it just really made me feel at home in the town in a way that I hadn't before, because it just gives you so much contact with people outside of the college, with students, with their parents, with community members. And the Allen does a lot of outreach beyond the college. And that's, as you all know, Walker, is what education is all about. So being a part of that was a really grounding experience, and built on other things I've been doing in the town, working with the Oberlin Heritage Center, which I had started when I first came to Oberlin. So that's kind of the historic preservation arm in Oberlin, and they have a number of properties, which is a really good entry point if you're interested in kind of museum work. It's a different side of that you can also get involved with at Oberlin. And then the following year, so my third year, I started working in academic programs, which works to liaise between the college and the art museum, and to allow the college community to use the art museum. So that's kind of a merging, it's academic programs, so it's a real merging of kind of the academics that I'd been getting in my art history courses and the experience in education that I'd had with Jill and in the practicum. So that's been a really wonderful experience. And I know Hannah will speak more about that. But I think I should also just mention the Allen has been a big part of my academic life. So not only during winter terms, where I did one project was the practicum in museum education. Another one was working with the Eva Hesse archives. So that was just spending a couple weeks really digging into an art archive and doing that kind of hands-on work as a second year, which was an amazing opportunity. And now I'm currently writing an honors thesis for art history, and one of the people on my honors committee is a curator at the Allen. So they provide that kind of support. Her expertise happened to align with my topic. So that was just really lucky. But that kind of mentorship and support just happens because the art history department and the Allen are side by side. And then kind of the last point on that academic side would also be that this past January, I went to the College Art Association annual conference. I and 4 other Oberlin students did that with the support of the Allen, as well as other offices on campus. It was fully funded, and we presented work that we had done on the Allen's collection. So for me, that was one painting that I had started researching back when I was a sophomore, and the curatorial assistant to the assistant to the curator of European and American art. So that kind of thing just comes full circle and really builds up and up and up as you progress at Oberlin.
Thanks so much, Chloe. I know you have a lot of experience to sort of get through, so thanks for boiling it down for us. You've got a lot to talk about. So I don't know if anyone listening is familiar with the way sort of student employment works at Oberlin. I'm sure you can submit questions about that, and people who are sort of experts in that will tell you about it. But Oberlin is participates in the federal work-study program, and typically financial aid packages do include employment during the academic year, and it's usually between 8 and 12 hours per week of work. And the Allen is one of the entities within Oberlin that provides positions for students. And so, there's a lot of different ways, in other words, to fill that requirement while you're a student. And sometimes it's working in the dining halls. A lot of people work in the libraries too, in the circ desk, or in the stacks if you don't want to be public facing. And the Allen is another one of those sort of departments or areas at Oberlin where you can work if you're more interested in a research position, like Lucy was talking about, working for a curator, or an objects curator, or working for a more public-facing department like the education department, which is the department where I work for Jill. So that's just a sort of one piece of that. I should also mention, Lucy, thanks so much for bringing up sort of this connection between the art department at Oberlin and the museum. A lot of times while a liberal arts college the size of Oberlin might have a very, very strong art history department and also a very, very strong library system, even a library dedicated to art as we have at Oberlin. But it's very, very rare to have the quality and breadth of the collection of actual art objects that we have at Oberlin, and for the relationship between that collection and the academic side, which is the art department, to be as connected and have as joint a history as they do at Oberlin. So really for a long time in the Allen's history, the chair of the art department was also a leader at the museum, who might have been the director at the museum or a curator at the museum. And so there really is this long-lasting connection between those two parties at Oberlin that is a really important part of how students, both who are visual art or studio art majors and art history majors, become involved in whatever they become involved in, because the art department is actually situated right behind the museum and beside it, so that it's all sort of geographically integrated as well. So I know we've covered a lot, but Hannah, I just wondered if you wanted to, I know you talked a little bit about in your intro about what you do and what the academic programs office does, but if you wanted to talk a little bit more about that or about what drew you to Oberlin, that would be great.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll piggyback on what you were saying before and in answering what drew me to Oberlin. And it was that thing about the collection that we have at the Allen Memorial Art Museum. There are lots of other colleges around the country that have art museums, and a lot of times that is, centered on contemporary art or more modern art. And what I loved about the Allen was that it had old masters, it had Renaissance art, we have antiquities, we have things from Greece and Rome, we have things from ancient Mesopotamia. So it's like the whole history of cultural production is in this little museum that is small enough that you can become comfortable there and really feel like you know all of the corners of the museum. So that's one thing that really drew me to Oberlin. Another thing was how inventive the faculty members are here in using the collection in their teaching. So when I first came to Oberlin, I met biology professors and math professors who come to the museum on a regular basis. And I work with them, and they have these great ideas about how art can be used to teach calculus, or how math can be used, or art can be used to teach scientific observation. And so those were things that were really surprising to me. And I thought, man, I wish I would have known about Oberlin when I was applying to college, because I would have wanted to use art to think about any subject. That was always who I was. So I work with faculty members, in these fields like math and science, but as well as art history. Faculty members come in, on a weekly basis with our classes. So they bring classes to the galleries like the one you see behind me, as well as our print study room. And so our print study room is a really special space where student assistants like Lucy help to pull art from storage for classes to look at and study really closely, without frames, without vitrines, just them and the object. And that's such a special experience, because usually when we go around and look at things in a museum, we're kind of removed from it, from the frame or the plexiglass or something around it. So, what was exciting to me about teaching with art at Oberlin was how close of a connection people can have with the works of art. And I think how art is used in teaching at Oberlin is in a lot of different ways. So about thinking about concepts in new ways, or maybe exploring a theme that you've already talked about in class, or a historical period, or maybe you use it to build up your vocabulary in a foreign language, but also, building skills like observation, or, kind of emotional capacities like empathy. And what I also like that Oberlin professors use the museum for is kind of to shock students and to have fun with them. So to put them in a totally new environment to learn, which kind of breaks the kind of repeated going to the same classroom all the time. So they turn the museum into a classroom. And I've just been continuously surprised by how great the faculty are here at at using the collection in ways that I couldn't even imagine. So that's just a little bit about what we do with faculty members and student learning.
Thanks so much, Hannah. I remember going to the Allen at least twice or three times a semester, honestly, and for lots of different classes. Chloe and Lucy, I'm sure you've had similar experience. I remember not realizing that I think a really important distinction that I learned maybe my sophomore year was that what's on the walls at the Allen is really a small portion of what we have in the collection. The collection number is about 15,000 works, and as Hannah detailed earlier, spans many, many world cultures and just about 6,000 years, and it's incredibly diverse. And so if there's a class, for instance, something in the classics department, and we need something from ancient Rome, we can pull something that might not be on view, but that we have in storage, so that can be used for teaching, because one of the main goals of the Allen is to serve the Oberlin College students, Oberlin College and Conservatory students who go here. So I also remember, though, that when I was at the Allen, I would always see tour groups of kids, and that is more Jill's side of things. So Jill, if you wouldn't mind giving us a sense about everything that you do, which I know is a lot because I work for you, and how your role impacts what students do here.
Sure. Thank you, Walker. My department, the education department, really is sort of the entity within the museum that tries to reach out to the broader community, whether it's K through 12 education, Lorain County, Northeast Ohio, and beyond. So we do tours. We organize tours for anyone who contacts us, and that the tours are then offered by either my assistants like Walker or a core of docents. And both Chloe and Lucy are examples of that docent core that are volunteers. It ranges each semester from about 25 to 30 students that have gone through the practicum, which I'll talk about in a minute, to become docents. But in addition to tours and working with teachers to really design something that's specific to their curricular needs, which gives docents opportunity to think about lesson plans and designing curriculum. We do teacher workshops with the teachers to let them know about what we have available from the department. Our department also does all public programs and events. So we have probably about 5 activities each month that range from lectures, musical performances. We just recently had a poetry reading, students who wrote poems in response to an exhibition that's up, then performed those in an evening event, which was really great. And the docents are part of that. We have every week we have a Sunday object talk that's presented by the student docents. And I think that's one of the things that makes the Allen's collection and museum and our program different, is that all of our docents are student docents, and many other museums have a core of tour guides, of docents that are made up of community members. And I love community members, but I also see the power and importance of giving this opportunity for practical experience to our students here at Oberlin. And I think that's one of the things that makes the museum here special, is that we are catering to opportunities for undergraduates. We don't have a graduate program. We don't have graduate students. So all of our opportunities are going to undergraduates, and it gives just this tremendous boost, this background experience, opportunities that when you go to try to get those summer internships, or even when after you graduate from Oberlin, you have a leg up. I mean, our students have gotten jobs at the New York Historical Society, the Museum of the City in New York, the Brooklyn Historical Society, the Brooklyn Museum of Art, at Hyperallergic, MoMA, the Studio Museum of Harlem, Mass MoCA, Metropolitan Museum of Art, Pace Gallery, New York. I mean, the list goes on and on. So these are positions that at our museum gives you the work experience to then go on and get the professional opportunities. So in addition to events and programs in my department, we run a number of kid camps. We partner with, as Lucy mentioned, the local groups, so like the Oberlin Heritage Center, or we have a group called FAVA, which is the Firelands Association for the Visual Arts, and we partner and do kid camps in the summertime. There's an annual event in the summer called Chalk Walk that brings in over 1,000 people from all over Northeast Ohio. And that's a really fun event if anyone's around in the summertime. Everyone's just given chalk and you just go and express your creative side. And so that's a really fun partnership, and it's very colorful, and it sticks around on the sidewalks even after the first rain. We have a retirement community here in Oberlin's very active, Kendall at Oberlin, and we work with their different constituents who are some of our strongest supporters. And so, my job is reaching so many different people that it's really exciting. What I'd like to do right now is share with you how people sort of get into the program. Both Chloe and Lucy have talked about the practicum. So I'm going to give me a minute here, and I'm going to switch over to screen share and show you some pictures. We're going to back up here, right here. So the winter term practicum in museum education, there's the facade of the museum, this beautiful Renaissance inspired architecture by Cass Gilbert. And I managed to catch some of the snow falling off of the roof. So it's an action photo, believe it or not. We have a group that meets every winter term. There's usually around 14 students. We go to a number of different locations. Here we are at the Toledo Museum of Art, and the woman sitting there on the floor was Allison Kaplan, and she is an Oberlin alum who's working at the director there at Toledo. Now we're at the Cleveland Museum of Art, looking at their fabulous resources in education. Students take tours and sort of learn different methods of gallery teaching. So in addition to Akron and Cleveland, we also went to the Toledo Museum of Art, and students get to explore on their own, but also take tours with their docents and participate in a glass blowing workshop. So it's a sort of gives you a sense of the different types of museum teaching that are available. And of course, we spend quite a bit of time looking at the Allen. So this is the Renaissance Medieval Gallery that Hannah has as her background. You can see it again. But in addition to meeting all of the staff, you get to go behind the scenes and see where all of the mystery takes place. We meet with some professionals in the field, like Heather Galloway, who's an art conservator locally, and she's done a number of worked on a number of works of art in the museum. That was Hannah's academic programs. This exhibition, Afterlives of the Black Atlantic, has been wildly successful this past year. Lots of teaching opportunities there. Students do research on works of art in the collection and then practice different styles of giving tours or facilitating discussions. So it's really a student-centered and very interactive educational experience. I've been teaching it now for 3 years. And once a student has gone through this intensive month-long practicum, then they have the opportunity to become a docent if they're interested and participate in giving tours or I'll stop that there. There we go. Are we out? We're out. Good. Okay. Becoming part of the docents to give tours or participate in events like Community Day. Community Day is a wonderful event that's open to anyone and everyone, all ages, where we have activities and we have tours and we have handouts, and everyone gets the chance to get glue on their hands or any of the other various techniques that we do. So it's quite a bit of fun. So that's the practicum that leads into the museum program. And I would say in terms of jobs that are, Walker mentioned them, but there are different types of jobs. So as I said, there's probably, 25 docents active at any one time, but there's probably 12 to 14 other jobs, from paid positions at the museum, from sitting at the front desk, which is, I know a lot of students love that job because we're not, so busy that you can't also do your homework, but you're sitting in this glorious Renaissance-inspired building surrounded by works of art. There's the curatorial assistant positions for each of the objects curators. So we have European and American art, we have Asian art curator, and then we also have modern and contemporary. So those 3 areas. We have 2 post-baccalaureate positions, which means after someone has graduated from Oberlin, they can then stay on and work for a full-time for a year. Hannah has one of the assistants positions, and then I have one as well, and Walker is currently the incumbent in that position. So there's lots of opportunities, and as I said, I think Oberlin and the Allen Memorial Art Museum, if you are interested in art, if you are interested in museum work, if you're interested in education, this really is a fantastic place to get these opportunities. And we're a small museum, so you get to try so many different things that you wouldn't normally get at a larger museum. So, I think Lucy's a great example of working in different departments, different opportunities. Chloe is also doing a lot of tours for us and then helping us organize other things as well. So I will leave it there. And if anyone has questions, I'm excited to get questions.
Thanks so much, Jill. So the education department, Jill's department, is essentially that bridge between a lot of different things at Oberlin. And one of the ways that it functions or contributes to the overall functioning of the museum is that public-facing aspect. So, I think something that's important, just to go back to something that Jill said about the number of different really prestigious institutions that students who served as assistants at the Allen go on to hold positions at, those really make sense because even though we are part of Oberlin College, even if the Allen were its own independent institution, it would stand very well on its own. It really has an impressive collection of works, as Hannah mentioned earlier, and it's consistently ranked among the top 5 college or university art museums, not just college, but also like larger research institutions across the country. And so it is something that is, when we talk about unique, I think a lot of people think, special, but when we say unique, we really mean that it's one of a kind and that you can only get this pre-professional experience at Oberlin because of those different components, like the amazing collection, the attention that you get from curators and art history and art faculty around the academic areas, and then that community aspect that you can participate in a pre-professional way with. So that's really important. I know we had a question from our participant pool that we might want to address, just in case anyone is anxiously waiting to talk about it as well. Grace is wondering if we could talk about the art rental program. So it's a very hot topic, of course, and so I'll give you a little bit of background about the art rental program, and then I'd love to hand it off to Chloe and Lucy to see, if what your experiences are with it. I have my own personal stories, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. So the art rental program was started in 1940 by Alan Johnson, who was a sort of celebrity professor of art it was called Art and Art Appreciation, I think, when she was a professor, basically art history. And she actually lived in the Frank Lloyd Wright house that is now owned by Oberlin College and managed by the Allen Memorial Art Museum. But she was also a very pretty famous art critic in her own right, and she knew a lot of famous artists like Andy Warhol and Klaus Oldenburg and Franz Klein and Lichtenstein and Robert Morris, and she started this program in 1940 where students can live with art from the Allen's collection, because she really felt that in order to understand a work of art fully, or the most fully that you can, you really have to live with it. You have to see it when you're waking up in the morning and you can't really see much. You have to see it when you're happy, when you're really sad, when you're with your friends, when you're alone, in the winter, in the summer, no matter what sounds you're hearing, just sort of in all settings. And, she said that you might not like it after all that time with it. You might love it. It will change really who you are and the way you live. And I think it's a really important part of students' life at Oberlin, is living with these works of art. So at the beginning of every semester, we have this really long line of students, and students are able to rent works for $5 each for the entire semester. And these are original works of art that they have hanging in their dorms for the whole semester. And this includes works by artists like Picasso, Chagall, Matisse, Miro, Lichtenstein, Warhol, a lot of Japanese prints. Actually, we have a Salvador Dali, I know. We have Kathy Kolowitz. We have more modern contemporary works that I'm not naming, sculptural works, works on paper, mixed media stuff. It's really an amazing collection. So I don't know if Lucy or Chloe, you'd want to participate. I know you both had works.
Yeah, my first year, for some reason I had like schedule conflicts for both the days art rental happened. So I was like, okay, next year. But then first semester this year, I put my name, there's like this list that goes out, because it's not just like a free-for-all lineup anymore, I guess. So you put your name on the list and show up to these check-in times like throughout the day and into like 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. And then the morning of rental, and then you wake up again and line up at like 7 a.m. to get your pieces. So I kind of like wandered into the courtyard and put my name down. I was like number 400, but I thought it's okay, I'll probably get art. But I spent like the whole time in line, and I was at the front door, and then the security officer came out and was like, art rental is closed for this year because we ran out of art. I was like, huh? But I was like, okay, this is clearly no joke. So the next semester, this past semester, I woke up super early and ran to the courtyard, put my name down, and there's still already so many people there because people take it really seriously. They want to chase for the Picasso and Chagall and whatnot. But this time I actually got art. I got 2 pieces, and it was super exciting. I had one really big contemporary one and one Chinese print, and it was just really special to have them in my room, like Walker said. I have a couple pictures of them in my video presentation if you want to see. I don't have them here right now, but it was also super cool to look at who had the pieces before me, because there's a whole list of people, and I like messaged them. I was like, oh my gosh, I have the same piece you had last semester. And just felt super cool to have this like community like drawn throughout time of passing around art pieces.
Thanks, Chloe.
I would just add, like art rental is unique in that sense of like the building of community around it, where there's just this great sense of camaraderie as you're waiting for hours in this hallway with 100 plus other students. And that's really, it's just fun. It's so festive, and it just gives you this other way of engaging with art. But at its core, I think as you were explaining it, Walker, it's really just like what the art museum gives you too, this sense of living with art. Like the Allen is always just across the street. So the art rental program is really just an extension of the museum itself. And I think it shows just how intimately art is connected with everything else on campus at Oberlin, that you get to live with it literally in your room, but you also get to live with it on a daily basis if you want, that you can just pop in. The museum's always free, and you can really go back and visit these pieces over 4 years and grow with them. and see how you change in relation to them and how they change as you learn more and as you become a better viewer, a better thinker over your time. And it's been, at least for me, like a really wonderful kind of metric of my growth.
Yeah, I really like that way of thinking about it. It's also like a very glamorous thing. I know that's sort of like a shallow thing to say, but I always love just having a very nicely framed, it's this beautiful sanded maple heavy frame with plexiglass on it, and it's like labeled and it's heavy and it just looks very official in your dorm room. That's like maybe not otherwise like something that you would think of as like a permanent home, but it looks like a very permanent thing, and it's packaged and matted by the same people who mat the Modigliani or the Picasso or the Monet that we have on display. And it's really just a special thing to have. I think, Lucy, did you ever have that Rauschenberg collage?
Oh.
No, you didn't. I was looking at this because they each come with like a little library checkout card that lists the people who had them. I did like a whole project on it in a Tamara class, which is our electronic music department in the conservatory, just like on the Rauschenberg that I had in my room from Art Rental. People can integrate it into their lives in like so many different ways, but if you want to just have it like above like your bed, that's also fine. And I loved seeing like different works over the course of my 4 years at different friends of mine, like locations, and how it looked different, and how I could tell people think of it differently based on where they put it in their room. Anyway, maybe not interesting for you, but there's actually like a fabulous video about Art Rental where you can see sort of how all that happens on our website. So check that out if you have the chance. We have another question about, and maybe Chloe and Lucy, you can help us again about the academic sort of side of things. What are classes, studio and art history, like for art history majors and art majors in general and minors? And are these classes accessible to everyone? So the art department is divided into art history and studio art, and each of those halves has its own chair, and all the faculty members work together, and they all sort of have their own areas of expertise, of course. I think one of the most crucial parts of the Oberlin Art Department is that the facilities are really impressive. We have this sort of art complex that's on the corner of Tappan Square, and it sort of grew over time. It started with just the Allen in 1917, and then behind it, Jill was talking about this really lovely medieval looking courtyard, this cloister essentially behind the museum. That was extended in the 30s by the then director of the museum who designed it. It was also an architect. And so there's beautiful painting studios in there with floor to ceiling windows. And you can see like, there's so much light that pours into those rooms in the painting studios. There's also art history classrooms in that area of the art complex. There's a reproducible media lab, which is all for different kinds of printmaking, both old, ancient, and really new. And we also have a huge gallery in that part of the art complex that really looks like a professional, big city gallery. It's all white walls and lights and everything. And then the other part of the facility, as I should probably mention, was the addition that we had added in the 1970s, designed by two very important postmodernist architects, Robert Venturi and Denise Scott Brown. And that actually includes that spot that Chloe was talking about, I think, with that ledge looking into one of the modern galleries. So when that was built, it included a huge art gallery named after Ellen Johnson, who started the art rental program, and that also connects into a whole bunch more studio and classroom space for the art department. So in the art library, there's this whole little seat with a window going directly into that modern gallery. So you can sit there and study and see the curators, talking about things. I liked to watch an installation go up this past fall from that vantage point. Originally, the art library was in the main area of the museum, and so they wanted to preserve that when they added the addition in the 1970s, and that was their really fun, creative way of doing that. There are so many different things to talk about in terms of art department course offerings. I think to answer your question, Gigi, in short, all these classes are available to everyone. So if you are a first year, chemistry major or intended, pre-med track person or a philosophy major or what have you, you can actually go and look at all the course offerings, and they're open to everyone. I will say when you're a junior or a senior, as someone who's majoring in studio art, those classes they have a component to them. So if you're a junior studio art major, then you have a whole portion of your course load overall at Oberlin is devoted just to your studio work. And then even more of your class time your senior year, about half of your course load overall is devoted to studio time, during which you actually go through critiques and learn one-on-one from these professional artists who form our art faculty. And it's a really impressive roster too, both in the art history side and the studio art side. So I didn't realize that I wanted to be an art history major until right up against the limit when I had to decide what my major was. I just took an intro to Western art class my first year, and really fell in love with that. As Hannah said earlier, something that Hannah and I have in common is that we love to learn about things through art. And I think that's something that you'll hear often from art historians or people who have loved art history. It's just a really interesting way. And then, of course, the fact that all these objects are actually at Oberlin is really special too, because you can actually go and see them. I don't know if Chloe and Lucy wanted to talk about the art history side of things, or maybe like a favorite class you had, or how you got into it, or I don't know.
I also took themes in Western in my first semester, and that was definitely a really fun class. And I feel like the art history classes are really accessible to anyone, and I would definitely recommend it to all my friends who are not majors, because I just think they're so much fun. And people in the art history department really love what they do, and I don't know, just talking to them is so fun and engaging. So I like themes in Western art a lot. Right now I'm in methods in art history, and that's a really reading-based class, but it's also super interesting because we look at art through all these different lenses over time. I say studio art classes are a bit harder to get into just because they're smaller, but also I think my friends who are studio art majors haven't really had a problem with finding a schedule that they're happy with and have classes that they need. And I did take a studio art class last semester. It was drawing. It was pretty intense, but I learned so much, and it really helped me with the art history side to understand how works are produced. And I feel like even in the intro art history classes that are bigger, I still never feel like I'm lost or anything because the professors know everyone by name. And I feel like I have a really close relationship with other people in the class.
Yeah, I would say I had a similar experience as what Chloe and Walker have described. The methods class that Chloe mentioned, I think, is the most kind of theory heavy, hardcore art history course that there is, and it's meant to be a kind of gateway course to upper level art history classes, and it's really intended for majors. But outside of that class, the courses are really designed thematically and allow you to kind of approach it from whatever angle you're coming from. We're a liberal arts school, the professors understand that you might want to try this, and that you have this other knowledge, and they're really excited to help you apply it to whatever happens to be their subject in the class at hand. So those kind of approaches classes, intro themes that Walker and Chloe have mentioned, are kind of more lecture-based, but there's no textbook. They're still kind of, at least in my experience, have been really object-focused, actually. Even when we're not in the museum, all of them, of course, use the museum, but the approach is really specific, and that kind of continues up if you go into 300-level courses, which would be more focused thematically and would be kind of a combination of lecture and discussion, and then the seminar classes, which you would really only take if you've done methods and are a major. Those are the most focused in terms of subject matter, and then basically just reading and discussion. So that's kind of your progression. And for more than half of those, for those kind of, you can drop in easily if you're in or out of the major. And they're really open to anybody. And then I am not a studio major, but I can only speak to the art history side of it. But art history majors are required to take a studio art class. And I would echo Chloe in saying it's hugely helpful to the study of art history. Just seeing what a critique looks like and to participate in that has given me an entirely different perspective on art making, and therefore kind of understanding what I'm seeing.
I would also just add that because so many departments come to the museum and use the museum, you might be an art history major or a studio major, but you also are able to write about art like in your history class or in your politics class or something like that. So I'm always really excited when I see people, they show up with their art history class for a visit, and then they come with their like politics class, and then they come to me and say, oh, I'm gonna make a little exhibition, digital exhibition about some concept in my politics class using works of art. So I think what's really nice too is that the liberal arts learning environment allows you to kind of sample in that way and to do something using works of art in another subject area as well. So it can all become very integrated. And art isn't just for the art history people or just for the studio art people, but it's really for everybody at the college.
Thank you, everyone. So we have another question. We're almost out of time, but I just wanted to address this. Ingrid asks, I've heard that there are kittens in the back of the art museum. Is this true? Referencing the Ginkgo Art Gallery, which is an art gallery on Main Street in Oberlin and downtown Oberlin. So Ginkgo is an art gallery that sells art supplies, excellent quality art supplies for anyone, but a lot of art students will go there to get paint, pigment, brushes, whatever kind of supplies that they need. And they also in the back have a nursery or sort of shelter for stray cats and their kittens. Oberlin is home to a lot of stray cats for some reason. So we have that sort of extra extended community home for them there. But I remember just there are a lot of cats just sort of out when it hits sundown. If you walk anywhere, I would bet you that you'll come across a cat at some point. And they're usually pretty friendly, I find. That's been my experience. It's not right behind the museum, so I have seen a cat in that courtyard, but I think we really tried to get it out because there's a gate, so we didn't want it to get locked in. But yeah, there are cats sort of all over the place. I mean, I don't want to give you the impression that the town is overrun by cats, or give you false hope about just seeing a cat wherever you go. But there is a pretty healthy cat feline population in Oberlin. And one of our most proud sanctuaries for those animals is the Ginkgo Gallery, which is on Main Street. So it's on the same street as the Allen, but it's several doors down.
I'll say that my cats came from there. My two kittens, Valentina and Apollonia, came from there.
I have two as well. And then as Walker was saying, we also adopted a feral cat that just sort of showed up in our backyard. And so now we got him spaded and then we, feed him on a regular basis. But my other two would not accept a new one moving in. So we have to keep it separate.
Yeah. And for those of you not ready for cat ownership, you can just go into Ginkgo and play with the cats.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You can get that experience and then be done if you need to. Or I always go. I'm really allergic, but I will sometimes just go because it's nice to see them.
So small.
So they're so small. You forget how small they are. I mean, I remember being a student, I always forgot that people had pets, and then I would see a cat at Ginkgo's and they're just tiny. One last question. We only have about a minute to go, but just to close out, I thought it'd be interesting to ask everyone really quick if they can think of, just on the spot, the first work that comes to mind that they would like to spend the rest of their life with if they could, and then pass it on to someone else. So for me, I think it would be, we have this huge painting by Monet that he did later in his life that I would love to have just as a sort of, I know that it should be a focal point, but I'd like to have it sort of as a background for some sort of lounge party thing that I have at my nice apartment somewhere. Anyway, whoever wants to go next.
I'll go next because if I don't, Lucy's going to pick the same one that I pick. I'm just kidding. I love the Fountain of Life painting that's in the museum. And I remember when I used it for teaching before I started here at the museum. I probably taught art history for 2 decades. And I always used this painting when I was talking about the Ghent altarpiece by Jan van Eyck. And I would use this as a reference point. And I walked into the galleries not thinking, I never paid attention to where it was. And there it was. And I just about fell over. So that's my painting.
Mine's the same as Walker's, but I love that Monet. I wanted to, I would just love to like live in it because it's so nice to look at. I want to like swim in it all day.
I would probably pick our Turner. We have a view, one of the views of Venice by the British painter Turner. And it's so atmospheric. And the closer you get, the more kind of gradations and paint that you can see in terms of how it was applied. And it's just amazing to think what he's done with those materials. And it's just a really magical kind of luminous piece that I would be very happy to live with.
Okay, I was running through a lot of different options in my head. So I thought about the Bertos 17th century sculpture we have. I thought about this Yoko Ono piece that I've been researching for an exhibition. But then I came to the conclusion that I would want ancient Roman drinking vessels for my parties. So I like those. And I want a couple of them for a whole party.
That's fair. That's totally fair. All right. Well, thank you so much for those, on the spot picks. There's obviously an enormous number to choose from, but I think we'll probably be ending this webinar, but we're also, of course, going to have sort of an after discussion. So stick around for that. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And thank you again to all of our panelists here at the Art Museum, the Allen. And if you have any questions, reach out. We'll tell you why we chose Oberlin. I will talk your ear off about why I chose Oberlin. I'm sure some of us will do the same. So thanks for joining us, and see you later.